coming up. A fire for Hawker Beechcraft, but will it really happen? It's bloody hot out there. How does that affect you and your airplane? We continue our flying safari, and we run away and join the circus. AOPA Live this week begins right now. Hello and welcome to AOPA Live this week for July 12th. I'm Tom Haines. Our top story, Hawker Beechcraft might end up in Chinese hands if a deal announced this week passes muster. Superior Aviation Beijing Company is offering nearly $1.8 billion for the commercial aviation parts of Hawker Beechcraft. Details of the deal will be worked out over the next 45 days under an exclusive agreement. During that time, Superior will make payments to help Hawker Beechcraft maintain its jet business. The final deal would have to be approved by various federal agencies, including the bankruptcy court. So who is Superior Aviation Beijing? The company formed a few years ago to rescue Superior Air Parts of Texas from bankruptcy. Superior Air Parts, which still operates in the U.S., builds the XP and Vantage engines for amateur-built aircraft, and of course Millennium cylinders for Continental and Lycoming engines. Superior Aviation Beijing is a private company, but the municipal government of Beijing has a minority stake in the company. But does the company have the right stuff to keep Hawker Beechcraft as we know it a going concern? One industry expert thinks not. Richard ABOULAFIA is a leading aviation aerospace analyst. He's with the TEAL group. Shortly after the Hawker Beechcraft deal became public, AOPA Live's Warren Morningstar asked ABOULAFIA if the deal made sense.
The idea that they should be able to raise the cash needed to pay a rather high amount of money for Hawker and then resume production as an airframer is a little bit difficult to believe. Will they be able to grow their access to capital to do this? I have serious doubts about that.
How likely is it that they're going to keep the company intact?
I don't think they have the wherewithal. I would imagine that their ability to raise $1.8 billion and go ahead with this deal partly depends upon their ability to sell off aspects of the company after they get what they want, which is probably the aftermarket spares and distribution portals that Hawker, of course, has all over the globe. At the end of the day, Superior is a spares parts company. It stands to reason that's probably the part of Hawker that they're most interested in.
What would that mean for the piston line then?
Pistons, of course, are the part of the company that are most likely to survive because it's conceivable that an investor, even a small one with limited access to resources, would be able to maintain production. But to be honest, given what we know about Superior and its backers, I think it's too early to say.
Looking at the Hawker 4000 and the Premier?
They're dead under any circumstances, pretty much.
Whether or not this deal goes through, is there a market for the Hawker Beechcraft products?
Right now, you've got the bottom half of the market just crunched by the downturn, fell by 57% following the 2008 economic crisis. Given the number of players, we've got serious overcapacity. Someone needs to go, most likely, unless you see a market uptick anytime soon. Right now, given their weakness, Hawker Beechcraft is the most likely to exit the scene. Now, having said that, you look at the individual products, some of them, most notably the 800 series, there's no reason that they can't maintain it with minimum investment. Somebody can't maintain it with minimum investment. The 4000 and the Hawker 200 Premier 1, that would require work. And I'm not really certain of anybody willing to put that kind of investment into those lines.
One line not part of the deal is Hawker Beechcraft's military business, including the T-6 trainer and AT-6 light attack aircraft. The AT-6 is competing against Embraer's Super Tucano for an Air Force contract. Hawker Beechcraft challenged the original award to the Tucano. With the bidding on the contract reopened, Hawker Beechcraft has now put the AT-6 into limited production, claiming significant indications of interest in the aircraft from around the world. And a classic aircraft is going back into limited production. Aviat Aircraft will begin to build new Pitts Special S1S models again. First deliveries of the little aerobatic superstar are expected in 2013. The first 5 off the line will go for $138,000. Act fast, though. The price goes up on number 6. Not too often in life do you get a second chance, but here's one. If you missed the deadline to comment on the AOPA-EAA medical petition, you now have another chance. The FAA has reopened the comment period until September 14th. That's because both AOPA and EAA asked the FAA for an extension. Remember, the requested exemption would allow many pilots to fly aircraft like this Cessna 172 without a medical certificate. It would apply to any fixed-gear, 4-seat aircraft with 180 horsepower or less. You'd have to complete a free online course about medical conditions and assessing your fitness for flight. You can find out more about the proposal and how to comment on AOPA.org/advocacy. And a quick note about special issuance medical certificates. If you have one, the FAA is lifting a tiny bit of the paperwork burden for you. Starting July 20th, you'll no longer need to carry your letter of authorization with you when you are pilot in command. And this week, members of the RTCA elected AOPA President and CEO Craig Fuller to serve as the organization's chairman. RTCA develops consensus recommendations on aviation communications, navigation, and air traffic control issues. Well, coming up after the break, what to do when it's so dang hot out there. And we join the flying circus. AOPA Live this week continues in just a moment.
It's been called the most sophisticated single-engine airplane ever. But to the people whose loved ones are alive today, it's called a lifesaver. The Cirrus Airframe Parachute System, only from Cirrus Aircraft.
Did we mention it's hot out there? Most of the United States has been dealing with extreme heat for the past few weeks, but you may have never expected this. Take a look at this photo from the internet. You can see this airplane got stuck when the tarmac melted at Reagan National Airport. The U.S. Airways regional jet had to be offloaded and pulled out with a bigger tug. Airport officials say the excess heat created a soft spot in the asphalt. As the summer rolls on, though, it's only going to get hotter. We wanted to find out if there's anything to consider for GA airplanes in the heat. AOPA Aviation Technical Specialist Mark Milkovitz says there are.
The tires get worn on the hotter surface a little bit more quickly. Also, the change in temperatures, whether it's extreme heat or extreme cold, that can affect the tire inflation pressure as well. So you always want to verify that.
Other things you want to check include engine oil levels and avionics cooling fans. Also, make sure you're in good shape yourself in the heat. Air out the cabin before taking off so you and your passengers aren't quite so affected by the heat. And you have access to Mark and the other experts of AOPA's Pilot Information Center 5 days a week. Each year, the staff responds to hundreds of thousands of questions on a wide variety of topics, from medical certification to purchasing an aircraft. Now, getting answers is even about easier than ever. The Pilot Information Center is now available until 9 p.m. every weekday. We extended the hours because we know many of you are flying even later this time of year.
There's a lot of advantage to the evening flying. Of course, we have our West Coast members, since we're an East Coast-based company. And the flying time, this time of year, of course, folks are flying in daylight until 9 to 9:30 at night, Pacific. So this allows them a lot more time to be able to get a hold of the Pilot Information Center for their operational questions and things that just kind of come up when they're thinking about going flying after work.
Help is just a phone call away. Dial 800-USA-AOPA Monday through Friday, 8:30 to 9 Eastern Time. And there's an organization helping to advance the cause of general aviation across the nation. That's the Alliance for Aviation Across America. AOPA is a founding member. The Aviation Alliance reached a significant milestone recently. Some 40 governors have signed proclamations and statements recognizing the importance of aviation in their states.
It really is significant, and it's not even just among governors. We've had recently over 100 mayors write to President Obama recognizing the value of general aviation. We've had many state and local officials pass resolutions in their local community recognizing the value of aviation. So we think it's just a really significant milestone and just incredibly important in raising awareness about the value of aviation and general aviation in particular. And I think, evidence of the growing number of state and local officials around the country who are recognizing the value of aviation and general aviation in particular.
The Alliance for Aviation Across America now has some 5,500 members whose lives or businesses are improved by general aviation. Well, as you probably know, aviation can be a lot of fun, but one group of pilots is working to share that message with the public, as Paul Harrop found out when he ran off with the flying circus.
In pastoral Fauquier County, Virginia, Sundays are anything but quiet.
We do an air show every Sunday, May through October.
But this isn't your usual three-ring circus.
It's not on asphalt, it's on grass, it's up close, and it's the real airplanes.
This is the flying circus.
A place where biplanes love to fly, the big top in the sky, the flying circus, the flying circus.
The event even has its own theme song.
I just love to be, and one place you've just got to see.
But it's not elephants and the bearded lady you'll find in this ring.
We're barnstormers, and that's what we propose to be, is a barnstorming air show, even though we're here at the same farmer's field every Sunday afternoon from May through October. We've got several steermen and in various states of military and civilian colors. We do have 2 Waco biplanes. We've got a 1929 Fleet, which actually is my favorite.
And for pilots, that sure beats the clown car.
I don't know anywhere else where, a pilot like me can show up and play with antique airplanes.
But it's not all fun and games. There's some real history swinging from these trapeze.
For people to come out here, we really hope that they will get an up-close feeling of aviation. They'll go for a ride. They'll realize that these old airplanes actually flew. They see them historically in movies and things like that, but we're actually flying them and have an opportunity to give rides, and they'll hopefully go away with a sense of what aviation was like back in the 30s and 40s.
Folks from all over come to see the show, go for rides, and experience the history. Keith Vincent and his wife were on holiday from the UK.
Anything Army Air Corps in that sort of yellow and blue trainer scheme fascinates me. What the guys then did when they went on to fly B-17s in World War II just astonishes me, and I like to pay my respects to them.
The pilots are happy to share that history and the love of aviation with the crowd.
I take a lot of people up for their first airplane ride, and that's always a challenge because you want to give them a good impression so that they feel good about it.
And the show's many skits, sketches, and surprises with the old airplanes make some of the next generation want to take the stick. Would you ever consider becoming a pilot?
After watching this, yeah.
And that's no clowning around. At the Flying Circus Aerodrome near Bealton, Virginia, Paul Harrop, AOPA Live.
The flying circus.
What a fun weekend aviation outing. We got a sneak peek behind the curtain of one of the acts. Next week on the show, hear from the pilots on just what it takes to fly the stunt routines at the circus. When we come back, we're Botswana bound on our African flying safari. AOPA Live this week continues in just a moment.
Flight following didn't call out an opposing plane. I saw it on the screen. He turned right and the other plane just pretty much flew right on by. It's your life. You only get one shot at this.
Welcome back to AOPA Live. And now an update to a story we've been following for months. You remember a vocal minority of people in Santa Monica, California have been trying to end flight operations at the airport. One of the ideas was that the city would pay flight schools to do touch and goes and pattern work at other airports. The city council discussed the plan last night. According to NBC LA, the proposal was tabled indefinitely. We'll continue to follow this developing story. And if you're flying near Las Cruces, New Mexico today or Friday, you may find your GPS isn't working. The FAA issued a NOTAM warning of testing that could make the signal unreliable. Just a reminder that if you're using GPS for navigation, and who isn't these days, always check the GPS NOTAMs before you go. And finally this week, we rejoin my journey in Southern Africa. Here's part 4 of my trip with my wife Brenda and John and Martha King of King Schools. The terrain here in Botswana is dramatically different than what you see in South Africa, where we were yesterday at Kruger National Park. There, of course, a lot more vegetation, much greener, but here it's much more arid, much drier, a lot of rocks and gravel around, and the wildlife is quite a bit different. We had a 2-hour flight up from Ngala near Kruger yesterday in the Cessna 182s, and that's the remarkable thing about seeing this part of the world by general aviation airplane is that, well, you can change destinations so easily. To get here by road would take many hours, the better part of a day, and if you're on a vacation and want to maximize your time, using a general aviation airplane is definitely the way to get around southern Africa. It would be a real shame to go to, say, South Africa and not go to Kruger. On the other hand, it would be a shame to not come up to Botswana as well, and with a general aviation airplane you can do that as well. So lots of opportunities to get around southern Africa using general aviation airplanes. Well, the land looks barren and nearly inhospitable. The vegetation that exists is so high in nutrients that it seems to support more game animals per acre than any place we visited in southern Africa. In fact, big game seemed around every corner. A large herd of elephants gathered along a mostly dried-up riverbed for a morning snack as we looked on. We noticed that in brown Botswana, the elephants seemed more brown than the gray elephants we saw in greener South Africa. Giraffes seemed to find plenty to eat, even among the thorny bushes and treetops. Few lions currently live in the private game reserve that encompasses Mashatu in the Limpopo River Valley in Botswana, but we managed to spot a couple of males and, strangely, a female hanging out with them. Most of the grazers, such as buffalo and zebra, had headed to literally greener pastures when we visited Mashatu in April, a few months after the rainy season. But the browsers, such as kudu and other deer, stuck around. In fact, one impala became breakfast for this majestic guy. Our close encounter with this young male leopard occurred one morning after we had seen his prey from the night before stowed in a nearby tree. After a few minutes of preening, he ambled over to the tree and with one giant leap was halfway up the tree and, began crunching on the impala, an impressive sight and sound. Our e-ticket rides through the game preserves came about in Toyota Land Cruisers, the vehicle of choice for all of the safari operators. They are tough vehicles driven over all manner of terrain and surfaces. While the Land Cruisers are rough and tumble, they're also very versatile, sometimes serving as a food truck for our early morning coffee break on safari. Despite their size, the vehicles weren't at all interesting to the animals, including this pack of hyenas we happened upon. While these bad boys of the safari have a rough reputation, we found them amusing and quite caring of their pups, good parents and all. Like the hyenas, the baboons kept us entertained for quite a while. And it being Africa, we couldn't help but call the warthogs we saw Pumbaa from Disney's The Lion King. In the dry Botswana terrain, this well-equipped guy might just win the race. And speaking of a race, we felt like we raced through the Mashatu camp, which proved to be a true oasis in the desert. Comfortable rooms and lounges, a bar, a swimming pool, and great food abounded. We could have stayed a week. But our next stop called us. It was on to Zambia. We packed up at Limpopo Valley Airport and readied for our trek north. Come back next week as we see Victoria Falls from our Skylane perch, and then head to our remotest destination yet, the stunning Okavango River Delta. Oh, and we'll explain those goofy epaulets too. See you then. Plenty more to come about Africa. Thanks for following along. That's it for this edition of AOPA Live this week. We appreciate you joining us. We're here again next Thursday. Hope you will be too. Until then, I'm Tom Haines.